You're a chef? My husband's a chef. Oh yeah, where does he work? Oh, he's a lawyer. No, he's a home chef. You wouldn't say that. You wouldn't, oh, you're a doctor. My husband's a doctor. Oh, really? Where's he a doctor at? No, he's a home doctor. He
puts bandits on my son's knee.
He's a home doctor, right? You wouldn't say that. It would be insulting to doctors. But for some reason, it's okay to say that for chefs.
Well, hello. You, Andre, you and I are like opposites right now. You got dark hair, dark shirt.
Yep.
Blonde hair, white shirt.
Yep.
I'm closer to your skin color because I just came back from the Dominican. So I have a chance at not being white, extra white,
yeah.
Extra white, not being the shirt. What are we doing with your hair? What's working and what's not working?
I'll tell you what isn't working is that I haven't done anything with my hair in about 2 years. So I've just like given up.
So this is the amount of growth of 2 years. This is really
no. Like I've had haircuts, but I've just been wearing a baseball cap for the last 2 years. Like I haven't really thought about it. I was a chef, retired, so I don't have to show up dressed up for work anymore. I work from home unless I'm doing something.
Okay.
So I can tell you that I haven't really put much effort into the hair, but it's time for the rebrand. Rebrand. So like I'm open to whatever. Like,
okay,
I'm going to trust you. Like if you came to me as a chef and said, make something delicious, you trust me. So I'm going to say, make my hair look good. I'm going to trust you. I have some ideas, but you're the expert.
At the end of the day, like if I was a chef, a chef of hair, if you will, I would be asking students, instead of asking like maybe cuisine, I'd first start off, are there any dietary restrictions? Are there any allergies, right? So in hair world, that would be like, these are my absolute no-goes.
Yeah.
These are my hard stops, right? When's the last time you got your last haircut?
It's been about a month.
About a month, okay.
Yeah.
And you go regularly every 4 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, every 2 to 3 weeks. The sides grow really quick. And honestly, when it comes to haircutting, this is where it gets uncomfortable for me. It's more the sides than the top.
My hair's struggling. That's the thing. How does it deal with this?
No, it's just the growing out of it.
Yeah, I know. It's helpful.
Yeah.
You like this area to be tight.
Yeah.
Now, do you show skin?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, when I say the sides frustrate me, it's only because the growing out process. And when you asked earlier, like, what is the most important thing for my haircut? It's the beard. Yeah, it's what's important to me. So as long as the haircut matches the beard, we're good.
So we're keeping the beard.
Yep.
The beard
stays.
Jagger, and the hair is the rest of the rolling stuff.
Correct.
Okay, cool. I can put that in my trims.
Yeah.
We can keep this nice and tight. Actually, I think we should maybe take this down pretty short.
Yeah.
Also notice that your hair previously was cut. It feels like they just followed the shape of your head right through here, and see how your head just starts to round this way, and then it also rounds out this way, which I think is going to be really nice and flattering with your jaw and the beard, right? And so this is your jaw, this is your chin. Everyone goes, look at my jaw. No, this is your chin, this is your jaw right here, this is your jaw. So keeping this nice and square, taking this down really nice and tight. So you're going to actually have like a vertical wall.
Okay.
Super square, very square. And that's actually, I think, going to look really nice with your face shape. It's going to look great with the length of your face, right? And also the width of your face.
All right.
I don't subscribe to face shapes. I'm going, well, you have a rectangular face, you have a heart shape. I think that's bullshit. What I do think is that there are shapes or angles that could be more flattering for people's facial shapes, beards, you name it, right? And also, what really dictates a lot of men's haircuts or just short haircuts in general is actually the shape of someone's skull.
Okay.
Yeah. And knowing when does it round out, and do you like that or not? Like, I think we take it from about here down really tight. It's going to look really slick. I mean, it's going to look really clean. Keeping this top part longer. I don't know. We may not actually even take it down. We like maybe go a little, a little bigger. Go bigger, go home.
Yes, go big.
Okay. I also noticed, because I'm back here, the camera's not, is that I'm starting to see a little bit of a density change here through the top.
He's lying. Everyone at home, he's lying. Go ahead.
What are you doing to prevent it from continuing, or are you doing anything?
Listen. No. So, I mean, that's a long story, but no, nothing at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. Would you entertain ideas?
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. As long as it doesn't it's not a boner killer or anything.
Dude, you're not the first guy to tell me this. So many guys are like, I want to, but if it's going bald or keep an erection.
Yeah.
You're going to keep the erection, then lose the hair. There is a concoction. It's all natural, but it's a combination of essential oils. And I know it does work. And there's actually clinical studies, which I can even send in the paperwork on.
Sure.
But you're not going to have any of the possible negative things when you're dealing with pharmaceutical stuff.
Okay.
Because I've had same concern. I've had so many guys explain that that's the reason they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it because I don't have any hairline recession thinning, but doesn't mean I can't. I want to ensure what I got right now. Right.
Yeah.
But I've seen it work on so many people that areas like where their hairlines were like there was no hair, it all started growing back. I think that you have a really good shot at like you just spray it in.
I've always had a lot of hair. Long story short, I had a few surgeries, and I noticed every time post surgery, my hair started thinning.
Yeah, because anesthesia makes you lose hair, and if you have a lot of surgeries in close proximity, it really does kill the follicles. It seems like hair just pops out. But let's keep this part long. I think it'd be fun. Do you blow dry it?
No.
Towel dry it?
I do nothing. I come out of the shower, I do that, and then that's it.
What's this?
My hand.
Your hand. Do you use product?
You know what I use? What's it called?
I don't know.
Clubman hair tonic.
Okay.
That's about it. Yeah.
It's like a spray?
No, it's like I don't even know what it's. Some magic elixir from the 1950s.
Okay, so it's a hair tonic.
Yeah, it's a hair tonic.
How long have you been using it?
Pretty much the last 2 years since I retired. You know, before when I used to work, when I would go into a kitchen and work, you know, put pomade or something like that.
Okay.
I think I used like a Layrite or
yeah. Layrite.
Yeah.
That's from OC. That's where I'm from.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to take it short on the sides, leave this part a little weighty because we can always take it shorter. And then through the top, I'm going to leave this longer. I think it'd be kind of cool to have something a little like a little bit more focal point, something to add a little drama to it. So that way this can be nice and clean. The beard's obviously nice and well maintained. I just want to complement the beard in you with your hair. Is that cool?
Yep.
Awesome. Let's get you caped up.
So I brought you a gift.
You brought me a gift.
I did. I'm a big cigar guy. And I know you are as well. So I brought you something.
Okay. So
this is my personal stash.
Okay. Personal stash.
This is my personal stash. So this is an Escobar. So do you like hip hop music at all?
I am not a hip hop connoisseur.
Okay. But do you like if I said Nas, do you know who Nas is?
I don't know his music.
Okay. Well, that's his brand of cigars.
His brand. Okay.
His brand of cigars. So this is Nas's brand of cigars. It's called Escobar.
Okay.
So it marries two things that I love: hip hop music,
cigars,
and cigars. Nice. So this is a Churchill. It's nice. It's a Maduro. So I don't know how much you know about cigars, but the wrapper is just aged, fermented, just a little bit longer.
Okay.
It's longer. So if you're looking to chill out and you have some time and you're sipping your old fashioned or your cognac, this is a good cigar to go with it.
Okay. What about single malt scotch?
Go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah, tequila. I mean, Hawaiian punch, doesn't matter. As long as you're enjoying yourself.
As long as you're enjoying yourself. All right, cool. Yeah.
With time. You need time with it.
When I was in Dominican last month, I ended up having Cuban Cohiba.
Oh, nice.
Look, I can get Dominican cigars here.
Sure. You got the Cuban.
I can't get Cuban cigars here.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
I just don't do it a lot, but I enjoy it. And I think because I don't do it all the time, it becomes more of a special experience.
Sure.
It's the reason, like, on the other side of restaurants, we only go to certain restaurants for an anniversary or a birthday because it makes the experience that much greater and more impactful because it's attached to a memory. So it was me and two other guys, you know, smoking these cigars on the beach in the Dominican while our wives were off doing something. It was just like, this is it. This is it. Like, what else do you want to do right now? I don't know a lot of people who like cigars.
Yeah.
Most of the generation, I think, is all about vaping. And I think vaping is not for me.
Yeah.
Cigarettes, I've never been into.
You don't like strawberry kiwi smoke?
No. I don't want to smell. I don't understand why somebody wants to smoke a Bath and Body Works candle.
Yeah.
Stuff, right? It's like, oh, this smells like Bath and Body Works lotion. they all smell gross to me.
Yeah.
But I've never been into that. But cigars is the one thing in like tobacco pipes. Like when they're first lit and as they're continuing to keep smoking, that's a smell I don't mind.
They don't do this anymore, but back in the day, the malls used to have tobacco shops.
I know they don't know.
And I used to love walking by them because it smells so good.
I love the smell of tobacco.
Yeah, I love the smell of tobacco.
And it's not surprising that I think a lot of people do like the smell of tobacco because it is always in the notes of cologne, and they describe a cologne to say in hints of tobacco.
Yes.
So tobacco is something that I think
that is my scent, by the way. So I have a Tom Ford tobacco vanilla.
See?
That is
vanilla. I love vanilla.
Yeah.
I started getting into the neroli.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's, I think, the main smell in Green Irish Tweed by Creed. And I can't wear colognes because it gives me a headache. So I'm trying to mix different natural oils to get something similar.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get it exactly. I haven't figured out like a good source of food.
Yes.
So I want to do that like musky sort of thing. But thank you for the Escobar.
You're welcome.
I'm excited. I'm definitely gonna like that one up for sure.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting because you commented on one of my podcast episodes with my friend, who you worked alongside briefly, it sounds like, my buddy Spencer.
Yeah.
I've known Spencer since I was 18 years old.
What a great guy, by the way.
Oh, phenomenal.
Yeah. Salt of the earth.
Truly.
Yeah. I think that's his chef of the salt of the earth.
Yeah. So this Salted Earth was actually a possible band name that we had.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so it's funny because him and then another friend of mine, their handles online were possible band names that we had been floating around. So it's funny that very cool. Two former bandmates are now using possible band names for those respective bands I was in with them as their online handles. You are known online as Chef's PSA.
Yeah.
But you have an actual name.
Yeah.
Which is
Andre Natera.
Andre Natera.
Yeah. And so it's funny because Chef's PSA it's kind of what I'm known for. You know, even though I say my name at the beginning of every podcast episode I do, every interview, it's on every book that I've written, but people still call me Chef's PSA. So when I go somewhere, it's funny because I've kind of lost that. They'll say, "Oh my God, you're Chef's PSA." It's like, well, I'm Andre, but certainly, yes, I'm Chef's PSA as well.
So you have a great Instagram account.
Thank you.
A fun podcast where you talk about all things, I would say, relating to or supporting the art of working with the culinary arts. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah. So I pretty much, no, you're correct on that.
Okay,
but what I pretty much, it's not that I don't cover it a lot, but I really don't cover the cooking part that much. I cover everything else that goes into the business and the things that are, not necessarily discussed as much because they're not as glamorous. So I discuss the business aspect, the leadership, the mentorship side, the, what it takes to be a successful chef, the grind, the kitchen culture. But I don't necessarily tell you how to make a better scrambled egg. I
actually think the reason I probably love your account, one, I just love the way you phrase things. I'm actually going to pull up my phone from it because I screenshot one of your things that you post, like one of your PSAs, one of the PSAs. Yeah. I screenshot it because to me, this was absolutely relatable to hairdressing. This is the one thing. So like if there's hairdressers listening to this, and if you're not a hairdresser and you're like, why is he talking about this? Just think about this. You wrote, as a chef, investing in the next generation of chefs is one of your most important duties. And as a hairdresser, I always say all of us who've been doing hair 20 years, who are not going to be doing it for another 40, right?
Right.
It's our duty to invest in the next generation. So even though culturally, a lot of people like to talk shit about millennials, generations. I mean, I'm a millennial. I'm like the old millennial, right? Mm-hmm. We need to invest in that generation because that's the future of it, right?
Right.
I only learned things because someone took an active interest in me learning because I showed interest in wanting to gain more knowledge. Mm-hmm. And all the things that I share to a hairdresser, I'm just passing on information that was passed on to them and before them and before them.
Yep.
It feels, which is one thing that Spencer and I talked about at length privately, is that I think our worlds are so closely related because the things that you're talking about are the things I think hairdressers need to hear. Is there a movie that you would tell someone to watch that's like the best representation of what it's like to be a hairdresser? And my response is Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Yeah. Okay.
I go, that is the dedication and the mindset of somebody who wants to master an art or skill. You need to have that mindset if you want to master something. If you want to master hairdressing, you want to master being a tattoo artist, pottery maker, any sort of hand craftsmanship. It's going to take a lot of repetitive movement in pursuit of perfection. Today, I'm giving the best haircut I've given today. Doesn't mean that the haircuts yesterday were bad, but today I'm trying to perfect on whatever nuances were today.
You're competing against yourself every single day with who you were yesterday.
Exactly.
You were in the last moment.
Or the last hour.
Yeah.
If you're taking clients.
Sure.
Or the last dish.
Sure. What's interesting is, so one of the PSAs that I put up, which by the way, I just say, like, sometimes some of my friends jokingly call me, they said, you're like a fortune cookie for chefs. But one of the PSAs that I put up is, there's this old culinary saying, which is you're only as good as your last meal, meaning
we have one for hairdressers.
I mean, how similar is that, right? You're only as good as your last haircut or something like that. Yeah. So, we say you're only as good as your last meal. And it's kind of like this defeatist attitude, because I say the opposite. I said, well, if that is true, then the opposite is also true, meaning you could completely redeem yourself with your next meal, right? So, and same thing with your industry. If your last haircut was bad, but your next one was brilliant, well, there's always the redemption arc just within grasp.
My friend Andrew, he goes on Instagram as Andrew does here, and we talked about that phrase at length. And I said, it's not the last haircut of the day.
Yeah.
It's not the last haircut of the week. It's the last haircut that guest is leaving with.
Yeah.
Is their memory with you.
Yeah.
So with that last dish, I look at it as a consumer. If I've had amazing food and then that one dish is off, then they're going to have I'm going to give them a lot of grace.
Yeah.
But if they've been, the first one's a 10, the second time it's a 2, then it's an 8, then it's a 4, and it's all over the place. It's like, how do you reconcile that sort of mentality inside a kitchen, like the inconsistency?
Well, your reputation precedes you. What's interesting about doing that in a kitchen is a lot of your reputation, because a lot of chefs are ghosts, and meaning they have no social media presence. They're behind the stove. No one knows they exist.
Unless they're Gordon Ramsay.
Well, no, not even Gordon Ramsay. I mean, everyone now has a social media account. Yeah. So even if you have, 500 followers and you have your food pictures, people kind of get an idea of who you are. You don't have to be Gordon Ramsay. But if you don't even have that, and you don't have a LinkedIn profile, and you don't have an Instagram, and no one's ever seen your food, and you put up a bad dish, then they're going to say, well, that's my only frame of reference with that individual is the bad dish that they put up. But if you've seen that they have some sort of online presence, you've seen their food, you know them a little bit, it's like you're going to cut them a little slack, because they're going to say, hey, they're human. Maybe they had an off day. Maybe it was just a little bit of too much salt here and there. I always encourage people to have some presence online, because without that, then you're truly judged by your last meal. Social media is now, I don't want to say it's everything, but it's everything that you want the world to know about you.
So you said about social media, and I just want to touch on this for a second. I'm just wondering if it plagues your industry as much as it plagues ours. Are non-professionals living in the space of professionals becoming the authority, and they've overtaken actual skilled professionals? Like just a lot of beauty bloggers, and they go, oh, these products are great for this and this and this, and they have no idea what they're talking about. And yet they're gain these massive audiences, and all these people are just following bad information. And I see so many amateur food pages, right? I get fed so much food on my Instagram, right?
Sure.
No pun intended. But these dishes that are beautiful looking, I have no idea if the food would be good. Like anytime I see an Italian dish, I'm always sending it to my buddy Luca.
Yeah.
Because he's from Rome. Go, Luca, is this real? And he's like, no, but it looks delicious, right? This person, I look at it and they're not a chef. They're just like somebody who just has a passion for food. Have those people degraded or reduced the importance of what your title was?
There's so much to unpack with that question.
I know, that's why I asked it. It's been plaguing me since to try and get some answer, because cutting hair and cooking are two different industries. However, everyone is eating and everyone is cooking at some point. Not everyone is cutting hair, right?
Right.
You could have a passion and a love for cooking. I do. I am nowhere would ever say I'm a chef or I have great recipes. I have a couple of things that I enjoy eating. So does my wife, do some to my kids. But if you were to come over, I would be shitless,
Right.
scared shitless to cook something for you. I'd be like, here's tacos, and I'm probably going to fuck that up too. But what I'm getting at is because cooking is a thing that everyone does encounter at some point in your life. Do those people who are passionate, like, do they still have something to offer? And
Yeah.
do you feel that your industry needs to step up their game about sharing more with an audience? Because that's how I feel about hair videos.
Just because you have sex doesn't mean you're a porn star, right? Everyone has sex, but not everyone's a porn star. Yeah, you know, that the same, just because you cook doesn't mean you're a chef. Here's the thing is, just because you're good at making content doesn't mean you're a good chef. Let's unpack the word chef. The word chef usually means the person who is in charge. So if you're the chef of the kitchen, that means you're running the entire kitchen. If you're, so the chef hierarchy is, you know, executive chef or chef de cuisine, usually at the top, they're running the whole thing. And then you have your sous chef, which is running the chef de parties. And then the chef de parties are running the commis chefs and the demi chefs and so on and so forth. They're all chefs, but they're chefs of smaller and smaller brigades. Sometimes that is a brigade of one. So there's a leadership aspect involved in the term chef. Now, if you are leading an army of people on TikTok, well, then maybe you call yourself a chef, but you're not a chef in the traditional sense if you're leading a kitchen. You're more of a cook. Everyone's a cook, but not everyone's a chef.
And everyone may do their hair, but they're not a hairdresser.
Correct.
Yeah. That's probably one of the best explanations of what a chef actually is. Had this idea or concept that in order to be a chef, it's the way somebody would say you're the creative director of a salon. Is a, you know, there could be people below you who could probably do circles around you about particular things, but it's a leadership about leading a group of people and carrying them through the trials and tribulations. It's a slow time of the year. It's a busy time of the year. You know, we're having an economic turndown. We're not having economic turndown. You know, those things. Like, to me, it's a chef is a leader.
A chef leads and a cook cooks. And a chef can cook, but a cook can't chef. The other thing with that is, this is industry jargon. To the layperson, to the civilians, everyone's a chef, right? They don't view it that way. So they don't understand that the maybe just throwing the term chef around loosely can be considered an insult to people that are in the industry. So they don't know that. They're just saying, oh, you know, you're a chef. My husband's a chef. Oh yeah, where does he work? Oh, he's a lawyer. No, he's a home chef. You wouldn't say that. You wouldn't say to someone, say like, oh, you're a doctor. My husband's a doctor. Oh, really? Where's he a doctor at? No, he's a home doctor. He puts
bandits on my son's knee.
He's a home doctor, right? You wouldn't say that. It'd be insulting to doctors. But for some reason, it's okay to say that for chefs. But what they really mean is cook. They're a home cook. They cook at home. They're not leading an army of other cooks at their house unless they're bossing around the kids or whatever. So with regards to social media and all these people that are cooking, it's interesting because I've seen people that don't have the culinary chops gain millions of followers on social media and become overnight sensations, but they're really good at it. Like, they're really good at putting on the show and educating someone how to cook. That doesn't mean that they're better than some of the chefs that I know skill wise, but they're just better at putting it on camera.
And the other thing is, like, I was talking to somebody about this and I showed them an account, and it's a different industry altogether. And I said, why aren't you doing this? And they were like, well, you know, what they just did, this is the best part. I showed them this video, you know, person who this account is like about 1 million followers. And it's a very niche thing, right? So to have 1 million followers on a very niche thing is
huge.
Yeah. And he's watching, he goes, that's not actually that difficult. It's actually really easy. And it's actually not that impressive, right? Like, but he didn't say it immediately. He was just saying, like, why would I want to share that? I go, same reason my wife goes, why aren't you sharing these bits of information? Because we take it for granted.
Yeah. Curse of knowledge.
Curse of knowledge.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't know this? And I'm always reminded anytime I teach, because there's things that I learned when I was 22 years old that I'm sharing with somebody who's been doing hair for 18 years. 20 years ago, I learned something, and it's still blowing somebody's mind 20 years later. I'm wondering how much knowledge is inside this and other chefs.
Yeah.
That could probably be having really successful enterprises just by sharing, here's how you make a better poached egg.
Yeah.
That is my nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
I really do want to learn how to do a better poached egg. Apparently it's vinegar. I'm sorry we got on that tangent about social media.
No, but it's a really good point. When in culinary years, there's a learning curve. When you sign up for culinary school and you're right out of high school and you start on day one, the people that are 3 months ahead of you seem like gods. They're gods when it comes to food. They're only 3 months ahead of you, but they know so much. They have terminology. They know how to flip an egg in a pan. They're only nicking themselves with a knife on occasion now. And you're cutting yourself every day and you don't even know, what poach means. They seem so far away from you. And then you look at someone like a student that's graduating and it's your first day and they're only 1 year ahead of you, but they seem like they're light years ahead of you in terms of knowledge, right? Because they know terminology and they have the basic fundamentals down. You get into the industry and those kids graduate. The difference between someone that's a culinary student and someone that's been cooking for 3 years also seems like now someone knows how to move on the line. They know how to work in the business, the social dynamics of working in a kitchen. They understand the pace and intensity. They don't cry in the walk-in cooler as much on a bad day. They get it. It's like going back to that person that's their first day. The executive chef with 5 years experience seems like you said, they just know everything. But that starts to diminish and level off after about 3 years of experience. There's not a big difference between a cook that's like 3 years experience and 10 years of experience. And many times you could have someone that's 3 years of experience that can outcook the person with 20 years experience.
Why?
Law of diminishing returns. So they just, once you get the basics out of the way, so saute, braise, poaching, etc. And then you have product ID and terminology and you know how to move in the kitchen. After that, it's just, it's pretty much everyone's doing the same stuff. It's like in a boxing fight, like you know how to jab, you know how to cross, you know how to, uppercut. It's like you got the mechanics down. Now it's just putting them together with timing.
So I feel the same way about hairdressing. I say like once you understand creative hairdressing is classic hairdressing done extremely well.
Right.
It's about combining really precise, very simplistic yet complex in delivery of these classic foundational techniques, and you just repackage them and you're like, wow. But if you started off at that, you wouldn't understand the foundational part that it builds.
Right.
Well, I'm trying to perfect my art of flipping again. I was really good at that. Chef Spencer showed me how to do.
What did practice with bread?
No, but it's practice with eggs.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like with eggs, taking a flip, and he's like, all right, and ooh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I was so good at this that I would come home from like out on a Saturday night and I'd be hungry. And I'd be like, I'm gonna make myself some toast, some bacon, and some eggs, right? Because it's like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I would be 3 sheets to the wind, flipping eggs, and not breaking the yolks. I lost that talent. I do it really to
practice with some toast. Toast, like just some toast in a pan, just get the motion down, or flipping dried beans. Yeah, just
a lot of little things.
Just as long as once you got the motion in, it's like done. That's like riding a bike.
It's like we talk about how just to only use your thumb on scissors.
Yeah.
It's like we have all these little things to do.
Yeah.
So you can like isolate this. You're not doing this. This is Sesame Street. That's
finesse.
Yeah.
That's finesse. It's the details that, there's so much of that in cooking as well. It's the little things that even trained professionals miss, right? So, and that's really the difference in the different levels of cooking, is the attention to detail and the little things that a highly trained chef will notice that'll get lost on everyone. So like when I watch someone do something culinary wise, I could pick up like 1,000 little things that I would have done differently. 1,000. You'll notice the small minutia. They're holding it wrong, or they could have wiped their board differently, or they didn't fold their towels, or their peppermill was just ajar, or they should have tightened it just a little bit, right? Or they sprinkled the salt a little too low. It should have been a little higher. So all these little things I notice, but there's no point in me explaining it to anybody, because they're going to say like, what? That doesn't matter. Yeah, it does. Why don't you focus on just making sure they're salt?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to get into the minutia of this salt versus that salt and season it at exactly this height. And, so it disperses correctly. Like just make sure you're using salt.
Spencer's whole thing was like, use more fats, use more salt, use more acids.
Yep.
How long have you been retired now from being a chef?
2 years.
How's retirement treating you?
Love it.
What are you doing with all this free time?
Chef's PSA. So Chef's PSA is my new job. And that involves, a podcast. I've written, I think, 5 books. I've published 5 books. And I think I've written 10. Some I give away for free, some I sell. So I'm an author, I'm a podcast host, I do a lot of public speaking, I do a lot of consultancy, and I do a lot of mentoring and coaching. I have one of those business cards like for chefs, is like, you need this. I could pretty much do all of that if you pay me.
Where can somebody get these books? Are they on Amazon?
Yeah, you can get them on Amazon. So they're all independently published, and I think that's the move for people that are thinking of writing books. I wouldn't go with a big time publisher. I would independently publish. You could find them on Amazon. So the first one I ever wrote was titled "How Not to Be the Biggest Idiot in the Kitchen." I wrote that for kind of my circle of friends. It was just kind of jokes between us, and I didn't think it would do well. One of my friends messaged me as a DM, was like, "Hey, write this book. I'll buy it." I'm like, sure. Because I would put up these chefs PSAs and he's like, they're funny, turn it into a book. So I did. I thought, how hard could it be to write a book? I didn't know what I was doing. And sometimes not knowing what you're doing makes you do it. So it's a poorly written book. It's kind of funny and sarcastic. And it's a different version of me because I was still kind of being a chef and working in my bubble of chefs. The book is written for, I hate to say it's written for cooks, but it's written for chefs because it's all the things that kind of annoy us and make us laugh, right?
So if you wanted to be a chef and you're currently on the line,
sure,
would you recommend this book in order to figure out what maybe not to do to move up the
if you could take a joke? Yeah. So if you can't take a joke, because again, I realized not everyone could take a joke. I wrote a second book, very similar to that one. I'm sorry, the third book that I wrote was very similar to that one. It's called The Line Cook Survival Manual. And that is written in the same style, but it's like, okay, let me take it a little bit more serious and not be
not so smart ass.
Yeah, because there's some nuance in there, and I'm not sure if people could pick up always on my sarcasm, especially in writing. It's different.
I'm glad you said that, because sarcasm in writing.
Yeah.
It's the reason like I've stopped responding to some text messages. In my head, it's funny.
Yeah.
But you don't know the tone in which I'm delivering it. Sarcasm could be taken like, this guy's really mad at me.
Yeah.
Or, oh, it's funny.
And the thing is like, I'm extremely sarcastic. So it's like, I got to be careful because people will say things to me and I want to say something sarcastic back, but I realize they don't know me. They're going to think I'm serious and they're not going to think that I'm just saying that to, break their balls. So it's like, let me think of something, let me give them the professional version answer.
You can always be sarcastic with me, Andre.
Good. So the second book I wrote was titled Culinary Leadership Fundamentals. And that was for new executive chefs. It teaches you, everything from leadership to managing costs, et cetera. Another book that I wrote is called Bad Sous, Good Chef. And it's kind of it's more of a narrative story about all the challenges that a new sous chef would face and back and forth between a mentor. I've written books for the green cook that has a sense of humor. I've written a book for the new chef, the new executive chef. I've written a book for the new sous chef. And I've written a book for the new line cook. So I'm trying to really give someone the unfiltered access that they need earlier in their career, because there's so much that you have to figure out on your own. And there's so many unwritten rules of the kitchen that no one tells you. You find out when you get in trouble. I wanted to be that voice for people that don't have a mentor, because it's one of the things that I take for granted is I live in a bubble where, I could pick up the phone with some of the best chefs in Texas, the country, the world, and carry on a good conversation and pick their brain. But I realize not everyone has access to that. And if anything, that's more the exception to the rule of having access to these chefs. And when I realized that, I started thinking, well, I need to be that unofficial mentor for chefs that don't have, like they can't just pick up the phone and talk to these high level chefs as easy as I can or get advice. So I've made myself very accessible through my books, through social media, through the podcast, to be the unofficial mentor for people and tell them the things that they might not know, or sometimes you might work in a corporation where if you do tell them that, you're going to get in trouble.
I think that's great that you're making yourself to be a mentor. And I think that everyone needs a mentor, and then they also need to find their advocate.
Yeah.
Which is who is putting your name in the ring when you're not there to raise your hand to say, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I think those are the two very, very important aspects of any career, is to have somebody who you can go to for advice.
Mm-hmm.
And then going and having somebody who's championing you when you're not around. And I don't know how that works in the kitchen, but for a number of years, I was always going to New York to teach at the academies were always in New York. And so about once a month, like 10 years, I was in New York. I got to try a lot of fun cuisines, right? I got to go to some really crazy stuff, some stuff that people are like, why would you eat there? I'm like, hey, I have to check it out. It's so interesting to me to think that like It's like salons. There's the salons where you're charging thousands of dollars for doing hair. And there's salons and shops where you're on par with like an entree at Outback.
Sure.
And I've never asked a hairdresser who's not been at the top end, because I have a tendency, similar to you, to only have a circle of friends in a particular bracket.
Right.
Probably because all of our interests on the outside interests, apart from doing great work with our guests, are also quite similar. We want to deliver excellence to our industry.
Right.
And so the way you do that is you do great work in the chair, and then you pay it for it by doing seminars, hands-on workshops, etc. Right? That's how you do that. And you don't find that seems to be the case in the individuals who are working in the salon that are really doing it because they're not passionate about it, but it's more or less like a
job.
It's a job. Yeah. When you were a chef, when you meet someone and you see how they work in the kitchen, are you able to tell their potential immediately?
Yeah.
Because they say like it's how you do anything is how you do everything.
Correct. When we do cooking interviews, so I normally, some
cooking interview. I've never heard of this.
So a cooking interview would be like, let's say you're applying for a culinary position, in most cases like sous chef and up, they make you do some sort of cooking interview to show competency, because everyone can look good on paper and say the right thing, but or not everyone can, but most people can.
Hey, now with Chat GTP, you can amazing. You can look this.
Yeah, right. So you could get the answers to the test on the interview, but there's no faking it in the kitchen. When I say, okay, here's a chicken, here's an artichoke, here's a lobster, here's a whole fish, now make something. I could immediately tell just when they're setting up their station, like they're getting the job or they're not. Like I know within 2 minutes. And I'll make them go through the whole exercise just because I don't want to tell them 2 minutes later, hey, you're not getting the job. But it's pretty obvious to me once they start setting up their workstation if they're going to be a good fit or not. Just having done it for so many years, you know how they move with a knife. You see how they set up their station. You see how they work with others. You see how they carry things. You see if they work sanitary. You know if they have the requisite skills to butcher something correctly. The hardest thing for someone during the cooking interviews, you're always in an unfamiliar location. So if you're making something that you've made 100 times and it takes you an hour, in the new location, it might take you 2 hours because you don't know where everything is, right? You don't know where the walk-in cooler is, et cetera. But I can usually tell pretty quick. That's what the cooking interviews usually filters out.
I'm always curious, like, has anybody ever approached you about being a mentor for going like, look, I just can't get hired, but I know what I'm doing. Does anybody ever approach you going like, how to properly interview?
Part of what I do with a lot of mentoring and coaching is I will teach people how to interview properly, how to set themselves up for success for the cooking interview. One of the tips that I give, this is like a pro tip, is anyone can go online and get interview questions. Have ChatGPT write interview questions for your specific industry. Get someone to interview you and record yourself. So with your iPhone, record yourself being interviewed and then watch yourself back. So you can pay attention to your body language. You can pay attention to what questions made you uncomfortable. You could see how stupid you sound with certain answers that you thought you were really slick on. You could do that. And like you have that iPhone, use it to your advantage and practice the interview. That's one of the best pieces of advice I give people is have someone interview you, record yourself, pay attention to your body language, pay attention to your answers, and say, would you hire this person? And look at it very objectively, because it's really different when you're looking at yourself and you're listening to some of the answers that you say. I mean, I do this all the time on the podcast. I'll listen to it. I was like, I can't believe I said this.
Well, I do it all the time. I'm like, I watch this as an edit. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I sound like an asshole.
Yeah.
And sometimes I realize that the joke is so funny to me and the guest that I have to kind of like remove the whole thing because one, we didn't explain the inside part of the joke.
Right.
And now we just look like two assholes laughing at the expense of whatever it is that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's only happened twice. It took me one time to watch it to realize, oh, I shouldn't do that. It took me the second time to catch it in the act.
Yeah.
And then after that, I've been like, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Third time, good.
And it's funny with the podcast because I'll say some shit. I don't listen to my podcast very often, by the way. So once I record it and I edit it and then it goes into the into the ether. It is what it is.
Ether.
It goes into the ether and then it's like, okay, I may listen to it again and I'll think, oh, that episode is terrible. That episode is really bad. And then someone will message me and say, that was the best episode. I needed to hear that exactly. I'm like, really? I thought that episode was terrible. And sometimes I'll record them and say, this is the one. This is the best thing I've ever said.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. And no one will listen to it. I'm like, you guys are sleeping on this is my best episode.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
It's so funny because you just never know what somebody's going to like. And you also don't know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Or how it's going to be received. Or like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Yeah. To you.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense to you. It does not make perfect sense to somebody else. Like I thought I had a few episodes, I'm like, man, this is going to go like wildfire. Like this is, there's great questions, this and that. And I'm like, dude, people are like, you look at the analytics, right? Because you get curious.
Yeah.
Like, why are you sleeping on this? There's gold in these hills.
This is so good. Listen to it. Like some of my best episodes, people sleep on them and they like message me about some of my worst episodes. Like, oh, this is my favorite one. I'm like, all right.
Have you ever tried to figure out like what the key is to like, well, what was it about this one episode that I hated so much? And if I can just recreate this same emotional response to my podcast where I dislike it so much, I will end up having more episodes that people like. Are you calculating like that with your podcast? Or are you just like, look, I'm passionate about this, I'm talking about this, and I'm moving forward?
Yeah. I'll tell you what my podcast method is. And like, I'm sure people wish there was like some method, but it's not. It's like, okay, I got to record my podcast. What am I going to talk about today? Take a shower. Let's talk about that. Let's turn on the camera. And then I just talk. That's it. That's the method. There's no notes.
It's pure madness.
It's like, I'm looking, I have an idea. I'm going to talk shit for about 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. There's no secret script. I mean, occasionally I'll make notes. Like if it's maybe like I did one on finance and money and food costs. So yeah, I had notes for those. And
you want to make sure you have data to support your claim or your opinion, like to support or to be, and against the grain, whatever it may be.
I would say about 1 in 5 is those very detailed. I need to make sure that I'm giving factual numbers, et cetera. But the majority of my podcast is like, I think I'm going to talk about how much I fucking hate brunch today. I
actually loved the brunch one with Easter.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like the chef was all pissed off at the bunny. You did this to us.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it's funny. I actually don't enjoy brunch because I don't enjoy how many people there are.
Yeah.
And how the menu is so limited or fixed. It's just not a fun thing.
It's not fun for the cooks either, by the way.
Why can't we just go back to lunch?
Yeah, let's do lunch.
Why does it have to?
The worst thing a chef wants to hear is when the owner comes up to him and is like, hey, I got this great idea. Wait for it. Brunch. It's like, fuck. By the way, I hope we could swear on your podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, brunch is like and by the way, there's a few chefs out there that will DM me like, we love brunch. It's like, well, okay. Yeah, shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just saying that because you make money and maybe you're the owner because, you're not hungover or you're not short-staffed or you didn't crash Friday night service because you were prepping for Saturday brunch. You're the exception to the rule. The majority of chefs hate brunch because they're hungover. They went out partying the night before or they worked late on a Friday night and they have to turn around and open the next day. So they're tired. They have to create a menu for 2 days a week and then they throw it all away like at 3 p.m. on Sunday.
Seems like a expensive endeavor.
Oh, it is. Well, I mean, you do make some money, but it's normally like, hey, we got to increase revenues. We need to drive some sales. What's the solution? Brunch. And I get it from a business standpoint. I understand why you have to do brunch. From a good for my chef well-being, I fucking hate brunch. I don't mind if you're cooking it though. If you're cooking it, I'll go.
It's like me with kids cups.
Yeah.
I cut my own kids.
Yeah.
I have cut friends or clients to children.
Yeah.
Am I taking strangers off the street who don't know me and they're coming to the salon? Am I cutting kids? The answer is no.
Yeah.
They scream, they kick, they cry, they ruin the whole salon experience most of the time. I have children, so people think I do really great with like calm and child out. My kids sit so fucking still because they were raised around. They know there's the scissors are sharp. They know the trimmers tickle them. They sit still and they're great. Most kids are not. And every time a parent is trying to help, it just makes it worse. Mm-hmm. What they're doing is they're like, I'll hold his head. I'm like, how would you feel? You're already in a place you don't like. And now someone is forcing your head. They're going to explode and scream even more. It's like, I'm like, don't touch them. They're like looking at me like I'm the bad person telling them how to parent. And I'm not trying to tell you how to parent. I'm telling you like not make your kid disrupt the environment even more. This is why there's salons and shops for kids. It's a place where these people know how to deal with kids. They give them the iPads. They put them in a chair. It looks like a plane. Sorry, I couldn't get one of those for an adult. It would have been really funny if I did the full thing.
You sound like a chef having to cook for vegetarians. Just kidding. I'm kind of joking. It's not that it's difficult to cook for vegans, but it's difficult to do anything when you're not prepared. You have a vegan or a vegetarian came into the restaurant that's not vegan and vegetarian. We weren't expecting any vegans or vegetarians. And they say, hey, by the way, I can't eat this, and the kitchen's busy. It's like, shit, you got to think on the fly. And then we come up with something that we have on hand, and we didn't prepare or whatever. And then they're like, well, this is disappointing. You don't know how to cook for vegetarians. Like, yeah, I do.
If I'm prepared.
And I think that's really where chefs kind of stumble, is when people come into the restaurants. And look, chefs should be prepared. If I'm writing a menu, I'm going to have vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, et cetera, all these options available, because I know that's what we're dealing with in today's world. But if you're not that prepared, if you're that chef that's not prepared, and you're running a certain type of restaurant with a certain type of menu, and someone comes in and says, I can't eat this, and this, and things are already prepared. Well, when you're in a very busy restaurant and it's the chaos of service, it is difficult to come up with things on the fly, especially when they say, oh, just surprise me. I'm sure your chef can make something delicious. Like, yeah. Yeah.
I've dated many vegetarians, and there would not really be anything on the menu. And they would always, is there anything you can make for me? And they go, oh, don't worry, we'll make something first. Goes, okay. And every single time it was tofu and a teriyaki sauce over rice with steamed broccoli.
Yep. That's like the go-to.
She was like,
lazy dish.
And this was at like a really high-end, nice restaurant. I think even at one point it was overseen by a Michelin chef.
Oh, there's bad cooks everywhere.
Well, not bad cooks. It was just a bad choice. It was like the most like vanilla thing. And I almost looked at it as like they were punishing her for having this palate. Yeah. Like, we will make your food so miserable, you'll be begging for bacon. There was a restaurant in Los Angeles that I loved. It was called Animal.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's Vinny and whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. 2 pans, 1 chef, which I thought 2 pans, 1 cook or something like that.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny play on words at the time.
I don't get the joke.
I'll tell you later.
All right.
What I loved on the menu is they said we polite
2 pans, 1 cook.
2 pans, 1 cook.
I got the joke.
One of the things that I loved on their menu is they said we politely decline any substitutions or changes to any of the plates, which also allowed them to say, I'm sorry, we're just not going to make that.
Right.
From having a friend in your world, he goes, have you ever ordered anything at a restaurant? Substitute a few things and add a couple things, and then you don't like what you ordered?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, Spencer. Yeah, absolutely. He goes,
yeah.
It's because we didn't make it that way for a fucking reason.
Yeah.
That's how he said it to me. And it really started opening my eyes to the choices I would make on the menu. For instance, like, I'm not a fan of a couple things. And is it something I can eat through? Is it something I have to, can I get it removed? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it something I have to completely change and pick another entree? I'm not a fan of like aioli because I don't really like mayonnaise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm ordering a burger and every burger has an aioli on it, I'm like, can I get that off the side? Because it's not going to change it for me.
Right.
I only wanted to pick the burger because it had bacon. I was eating one that had bacon.
Yeah.
And as a Chipotle mayo, well, guess what? Fuck that Chipotle mayo. I want the bacon. You know, I'm going to be happy. I know what I'm getting myself into. But sometimes if you're ordering something, and it's because consumer, and they have all these things, you're mixing and matching it. To me, it's just as messy as it's like going into a vegetarian restaurant. Hey, y'all got some ribs?
I'm not a vegetarian.
No. Think about that in a way. Why is it that a restaurant that is serving is serving meat has to bend the knee to a vegan or vegetarian? But you don't get that when you go into those other restaurants. Is it because they do have salad, and because they have salad that they're going to make something wonderful on par with a vegetarian or vegan restaurant?
Do you want a real answer?
Yeah, I do.
The real answer is you hit the nail on the head. If you go into a restaurant, they have vegetables on hand. If you go into a vegetarian restaurant, they don't have meat on hand. So if they did have meat on hand, they would make it for you. If I was the chef of a vegetarian restaurant, there's no reason for me to carry an inventory of steaks. I wouldn't have any. It's a vegetarian restaurant.
Yeah.
But if you run a standard restaurant, let's just call them your typical restaurant, I do have vegetables because, they most likely come with everything. So that's a very logical answer. But your point is well put.
Just because you have the ingredients doesn't mean you're the best suited for delivering that product.
And I think most chefs and most restaurants have figured it out now. And so they do have these alternatives for vegetarians and vegans and gluten-free and all these dietaries. Like, I'll give you an example. I was helping out a restaurant for Valentine's Day. And for Valentine's Day, you know, people will book in advance and they'll let you know they're gluten-free or vegetarian or whatever their dietaries are. We have a list and we know in advance, hey, anyone that comes in with this particular set of restrictions, this is what they get. So we know in advance what we're going to give them. And most restaurants will prepare that way. I think the difficulty is when you're one of those chefs that is, it's my way or the highway and I'm writing the menu. If you don't like it, you can piss off. It's like, well, you're going to encounter people with dietaries and restrictions and allergens. And so just be prepared. It's a part of doing business nowadays where, allergens have popped out. And I don't want to say they popped out of nowhere, but I've never known so many people with allergies in the last 5-10 years. Like when I was growing up, we drank out of water hoses and we didn't have allergies.
I understand. Like we have our dietary restrictions is that we don't include seed oils in our diet.
Mm-hmm.
Eating organic, all those things. I understand that gluten-free, no grains, whatever. But the biggest thing for us, like I will overlook if it's not organic. I will overlook a lot of things. My biggest thing is seed oils because we've noticed since we removed them, again, just anecdotally, just my own personal experience.
Yeah,
inflammation and the overall wellness and energy has gone up since we've not had seed oils.
Sure.
So good luck for us going to most restaurants.
Right.
However, we have discovered several of them here in Austin that are seed oil free, and they fall right in line with what we're doing. You know, they're having bread items, you know, using coconut flour or whatever. And those like Picnic, great one, Ziki, like these are amazing, great places. So now these are not our new go-tos, right? But I'm also, if I'm traveling on the road, I know if I'm like, I was in a very remote part of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And by remote, I mean, I passed probably like 5. I only showed 3 horse and buggies of Amish, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell the restaurant what it was, but it's a big chain restaurant. That was my best option. And I know I'm not going to go. And I asked, I go, is it possible you can get this cooked in butter? And they said, I'm sorry, it's gas.
What do they cook in? Like canola oil or something?
Probably.
Yeah.
Which
is the worst.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The absolute worst is canola oil.
Oh, yeah. And because it's originally designed for engine lubricants in World War II.
Yeah. And rat poison, I believe.
Exactly. Well, there's a lot of things that we eat that were poisons at one point.
Yeah.
But that's all. That's another topic, probably for another guest.
Yeah.
This is my perception, is that at a point in time, being a chef or a restaurant, the sole purpose was to provide delicious food. Now I feel a chef or the restaurant now has to provide more than just delicious food. They have to provide, is it health conscientious? Is it ethically sourced? Is it fair? This is that. It has the role, has more things got expanded into the umbrella of what a chef now has to consider, where before it just seemed like, just make really fucking good food and that was it.
Both. So it depends who your audience is, right? So the taco truck doesn't care, right? I'm not saying maybe they do, but most likely a lot of food trucks, it's like, okay, the world's best hot dog stand doesn't really care where they're getting the pork from for the hot dogs, or maybe, you know, they like a specific cut, where another restaurant, maybe it is their market. That's what they want to provide for their audience. And I can tell you this, like the wizard behind the curtain, a lot of the stuff is bullshit.
I love this.
It's a lot of it's just clever marketing on the restaurant side or the people that they're buying the food from side. So they're saying it's this, that, and the other, but it's not. Or they're saying we buy all our food from a farm that's, you know, X amount of whatever. It's like, no, you buy all your food from one person who gets it all from the farms. You're buying it from the big truck that goes and has all these contracts with all these small farmers, which aren't that small. You start to realize, like, it's all about the story. It's all about the narrative that they're trying to push. I know a lot of chefs, I've seen this done, where they'll say it's organic and charge more. It's not. Say it's local and charge more. Say it's this, that, and the other. But
I've always wondered about that.
Should they? No. But does it happen? Absolutely, it happens. So
there's no way for me to verify the sourcing based off of the menu.
Right.
Unless I'm walking into their freezer or the storage part and I'm able to go like, oh yeah, I know that farm.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like
That's that farm in Nantucket.
the reality is a restaurant, a farm can probably only support 1 or 2 restaurants. Realistically, like a small farm. I mean, you think about how much land is needed to, how much spinach I need for my spinach salad is like, it's a ton. It's probably, for a week, I'm going to go through X amount. So a lot of your smaller restaurants could get away with that. I understand why a lot of bigger restaurants that do more volume don't go that route, because the truth of the matter is the small farms can't keep up. The big farms can. To your point earlier, was the goal to just make good food? Someone's goal was, but someone else's goal was a capitalist, and they came in it to make money. And that's why they put, several $1 million into the build out and the marketing and the branding and the uniforms and this, that, and the other. And they, after putting a couple $1 million, like, okay, we hired this artist, but I'm a capitalist, and here's why we don't get along, because you're in it for the art and the craft, and I'm in it for the money.
How often is that
I would say it's probably most often.
I imagine it would.
I would assume, like an arbitrary number that I'm pulling out of the sky, I would say about 90% of your restaurants are in it as a business, and about 10% that are in it for the love and the craft, they don't survive, because a lot of times when you're doing it just for the craft, you alienate a lot of people who don't understand food. Like, everyone thinks they understand food, that they get it and they want to eat cutting edge food, but they don't. If they did, there would be way more restaurants like that. If that was the truth, there wouldn't be an Applebee's on every corner. People like Applebee's and McDonald's because they're not as into it as they say they are.
That was a restaurant in Pennsylvania. Cracker Barrel,
right?
At the end of the day, like, I was trying to go in a healthier option of ordering steak and, some sort of a healthier side. And it was lackluster.
Yeah.
I should have just gotten chicken fried steak.
Right.
I should have gone full bad.
People vote with their money. Right. Yeah. So wherever you're spending your money, that we're going to give you more of that. So if I have a restaurant and I have all this organic, cool, chef-driven food, and you keep ordering it, then I will continue to give it to you. But if I have a restaurant and I have all this cool stuff and all you order is the steak and the chicken, guess what? Do that a couple of times. I'm a quick learner and I got to keep my doors open. I'll give you more steak and chicken.
There was a place in Costa Mesa, California called Taco Asylum. It's no longer there. But
called Taco what?
Taco Asylum. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. And so when you eat at the restaurant, it's this place, and it's called Camp. It's across from this other strip mall called the Anti-Lab, the Lab, or the Anti-Mall. Mm-hmm. And they're like these hodgepodge things where, like, it was all this like offbeat cool shit, right? Like, you walked in like, oh, this is a cool record store and a cool clothing place and a sneaker store where, the freezer doors, they put all the sneakers inside freezer doors. It was like really cool shit. Right?
Yeah.
Right across was like the more natural, like outdoorsy, then a vegan restaurant had all this. And then they had Taco Asylum. And it's kind of like if we're doing a triangle, right? You have the 2 points that are aligned. So you have Anti-Mall and you have the Camp. And then right over here, the high point of the triangle was an El Pollo Loco.
Yeah.
Which is all over Southern California.
Yeah. And
at Taco Salsman, they had crazy meats done in tacos. Like, they had a pork belly with ghost peppers. They had a beef heart.
Okay.
Right? They did not have any chicken.
Great.
And people go, I wish do you guys have chicken? And the servers were so fine. They go, yeah, we have chicken. It's right over there at El Pollo Loco.
Yeah, and I bet you what, El Pollo Loco's printed money, and that other place might be struggling selling that beef heart.
And over time, I started noticing the tacos became more tame, and then eventually no longer.
Yep.
But to your point, that's what reminded me of when you're talking about that, because it was so fun. Like, the initial buzz of this really crazy taco place, the tacos are amazing. You just had to be adventurous.
Yeah.
To your point, everyone thinks they're adventurous till it's their turn to jump off the cliff.
Yeah, good way to put it. And it's so true. So many chefs that I know, good friends of mine, they lose their business or their restaurants close because they're cooking as an expression of what they want to do. They want to impress themselves. They want to impress other chefs. They want to cook some of the cool things that you see in Copenhagen and in Spain. And it's like, well, you can't do that in the strip mall in Nebraska, buddy. Like, no one wants to eat that shit.
Maybe not. But the funny thing is you always hear about some famous chef and like, where did you grow up? I grew up in a small town in Nebraska. They had to leave.
Yeah.
And they're like, why did you just bring it there? Like, because no one wanted it. I left the salon because I was the only one the way I was. So I had to leave the small town Temecula, California. I was like, I'm going to Newport Beach, which, 40 miles, 40, 50 miles away, not far. It was far enough that it was like totally different.
Yep.
And I fit more in that salon environment than I did in my like small town little thing.
Pachanga's a great casino, by the way, in Temecula.
That was an 18 and over casino for years.
Really?
Yeah. So all of us who had turned 18 while we were in high school, we would all go there and gamble. And so by the time we were 21, when people who did not know that we were from Temecula would say, hey, are you guys going to go gamble for, Vegas? And you turn 21, we're all like, we've been doing it for 3 years.
Really?
Like gambling is not exciting to me. So I did it in high school legally.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go to Vegas, honestly, until...
But in California, you can't roll dice. You got to do cards, right? At least that's what, when I used to live in California, that's what it was.
I'm just saying,
you could only, like, if you're playing craps, you could only play card craps.
I never played craps.
Yeah, okay.
I learned how to do blackjack because my friends were trying to become blackjack dealers. And they taught me something that almost got me killed at the table.
Oh.
Are you a gambler?
Not blackjack, but yeah, I like to gamble.
Okay, so what happened is I was gambling and I was up. Like I had done a couple, they taught me enough things so I wouldn't like lose my axe.
Dang.
And so I'm up like $100. I think I put like 15 or 20 bucks in. Now I'm up 100, right? I would call that a success.
Mm.
Well, I get 2 tens, which is 20. You're supposed to stay.
Right. You split them.
I split them because I learned you could do that. And then I say hit. And what do I get?
Ace.
And 9.
Oh.
So what do? Do you go or do you stay or do you
stay?
No. I hit because I'm up. Remember, I'm like up $100. I don't care if I lose $100.
Yeah.
So I say hit, and everyone is starting to like glare at me. The dealer goes, I think you should stay. And I go, not your money, it's mine. Let's go. I get 2. So now I have 21. And now I have this other 10. I get an ace. I thought I was going 2K. Chilled. And they were like, you took our cards. You took our cards. How dare you? And I'm looking at them. And
the other players on the table.
The other players.
Yeah.
Not the team on the table, pissed. And I'm like, I didn't know this was a team sport. Am I gambling with your money?
You are.
Well, they were yelling at me. And then it was their turn to go.
Yeah.
And I go, actually, I saved all your asses because you guys would have busted.
Yeah.
Like they would have, like somebody got like a 12 or like a 13, right? Or whatever. And they would have said, let's hit. They would have gotten a 9. They would have gotten over. Somebody would have gotten, I think the next hand was like, they had like a total of like 5. They would have gotten the 2. They would have gotten the ace, which would have been, I think like a 1 at that point or something like that. Yeah. And then the next card of that was like a queen. It was like, I'm like, they're like yelling at me. I'm like, but look at your cards.
Yeah.
I won, but you guys would have lost more. You actually now had a better chance with your shit hands to get to 20 or 21. You're just mad at me because I actually got the bullseye and then I split the arrow. That's why you're mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was pretty much the last time I ever played blackjack, because after that, I was like, I'm never going to get that luck again.
No, you do. And then when you do, you get like that beginner's luck itis, and you want to keep going back, and then you lose, then you just want to get even, and you never get even.
And then you want to start counting cards. Because I had a client who was one of the kids from that movie, 21, or the MIT. One of my clients was those kids.
Oh, really?
It's banned from all the casinos. And I asked him, I go, how true is it? He was like, it's true, and I banned. And he went through and told me all. So I didn't believe it. So I looked up his name, told him it was true. And I learned so much about counting cards. I can't count them, but it was a really, really cool thing to like see. All right. Do you see how this is more square through here?
Yeah.
Do you see the difference?
I do. It looks good.
Cool. I didn't take it to the skin because I didn't think it needed to.
Yeah. No, it looks good. I feel like I feel like a new man. You want to hear something cool?
I want to hear something cool.
Only because you're talking about counting cards. I assume it's some memory involved. I've competed in the U.S. memory championships for MIT.
Oh, really?
I came in, I think, 8th.
That's cool.
Out of like 200.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, I have no experience in it. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And I did it. And I was like, oh shit. So I have a lot of those little memory tricks to do that? To memorize things. Yeah.
We said earlier about body language, that you have like a trick to read body language, and that how it helps you read the possible, new proteges of the kitchen. So is there some that you are like, that you love looking at when you're in an airport? You're just like looking around at all the...
Well, I have to think about it. So I used to be very much into body language. I have a good friend of mine who's written some books on body language, and he mentored me and taught me how to read body language. And then obviously I just kind of fully immersed myself in the subject and learned a lot about body language, not just from my mentor, but through my own, didactic process. The reason I was interested in it, so body language coupled with neuro-linguistic programming, known as NLP. So I started studying them both because I wanted to see how they could help me as a chef leading big teams through language patterns and things like that. See if I could get, bigger groups of people to do what I need them to do, or how to inspire them, or whatever the case may be. So I really immersed myself in the study of that. Now with body language, it's really interesting because all the things that people usually think are true are not.
So if I'm sitting cross-legged and my feet are pointed away from you, it shows that I'm not invested. And if they're pointing to you, I am interested. That's like a common...
Yeah, no, that one is, I wouldn't say the cross leg is as important as where the feet are going. So as they say, where the mind wants to go, where the feet are pointed. Where the feet want to go, where the mind wants to go. If you're having a conversation with someone and their feet are pointed to the door, they're ready to leave. They're ready to leave. The conversation's over, regardless of if you think it is or not. So I used to do that a lot. Like if I was having an interview with someone and I'm noticing where their feet are, is like they're engaged in the interview or they're ready to go. The interview's done. You could see it in social settings where you could figure out who the leader is in the conversation. There's a circle of people having a conversation and everyone's feet are pointed at one person. That's the person that everyone views as the leader of the group. So those are little subtle things, but a good example of body language is in a movie. I mean, it's in Inglourious Bastards.
Great movie, by the way.
Great movie. So in the scene where they're playing the game, where they're sticking the card on their forehead.
Yeah.
Just before that, just after that, they have a shootout because he gives away that he wanted 3 beers instead of 3. He said 3 beers, but instead
not the German 3.
Correct.
Which is true, by the way.
It is true.
Yeah.
So the guy that I think first pops off the fight is Hugo, I can't remember who he was. Hugo Stilflitz or something like that. I don't know. He was the angry German that was on the Ally side. Mm-hmm. What he does, and you can see this in the movie, is he starts doing this with his nose right before the fight starts. Mm-hmm. He starts doing that, and that is a true tell if you're about to get in a heated confrontation or a fight.
Really,
so if you're ever in a bar and the person you're arguing with starts doing this with their nose,
better duck.
Time to leave or throw the first punch, one or the other. We were talking earlier about touching people.
Yeah.
Appropriately, by the way. So
a little background. I was saying how everyone starts to talk a lot when they're in the chair, when they're getting their haircut. And I said it's probably because there's a lot of sensory overload. First, you're touching their head. Sometimes you're touching their shoulders. Like hairdressing is one of the few professions where touching is accepted, expected, and allowed as it pertains to the service, which is head and shoulders.
Social norm. Same thing with a massage therapist.
Yeah, depending on which country you're in.
Sure. Usually the only place you're allowed to touch a stranger is a handshake.
Totally.
And maybe up to the elbow.
Or a hug.
Not a stranger usually.
No. So let's just I don't go like, hi stranger, shake your name. Yeah.
So this is a neutral zone in body language, right? Yeah. Anyone's allowed to touch you from here to here. That's neutral. And then anything from your elbow up is considered intimate space. Usually the only people that are allowed to touch you would say loved ones, family members, husband, wife, children, etc. They're the only ones that are usually allowed to touch you anywhere other than your hands without permission. One of the things that I learned through NLP and body language is a subtle persuasion technique. So anyone that's watching want a persuasion technique is to touch people on the elbow when you ask them for something, because it's just above the neutral zone. And they subconsciously think that you're someone important to me, otherwise you wouldn't be allowed to touch me just above the elbow. So now you fall into the subconscious category of a loved one. So when you need, as a chef, I would say, hey, can you make sure you throw away the trash and touch them on the elbow? They're more likely to do it.
You're not tapping them on the butt.
No, just on the elbow. So that's a subtle persuasion technique. When it comes, that's your body language lesson for your audience.
That's cool. I mean, I love all that stuff. Because I teach, so anytime I could go through and get something more effective, when I'm teaching, I always ask permission. I say, I go permission to like help position your body, because sometimes like I talk about invading personal space.
Sure.
So I'm like, all right, work with me. And I'm like, I'm going to control your arms and body. And so you get and it's very intimate setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm doing this with a whole salon of people, as I will go around and I will hit people's elbows, because what happens is when you're trying to do a completely square layered haircut, I want your elbows to be even. I want them to be at your shoulders, because the ergonomics of this are great for your body, but it's also great for your hands, right? And I will always I tap them on the elbows. I'm like, you're dropping your elbow. I'm only doing that because they're doing this.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get them to do this. But it's interesting that that's the actual point for two purposes. One, they need their elbow to be higher. And two, that this is a particular area where they may be more influenced to actually do that.
Correct.
Long explanation with a big aha from me.
Yeah, it's one of those tips that I learned early on, and I would say it saved me many times to get people to do something that they might have not normally done without a slight bit of encouragement.
We're almost done, dude, with your hair. Are you cool with this?
Yeah, it looks good, man.
Even though most people who probably listen to this are not working in the kitchen environment or that industry, I do think that leadership skills are leadership skills.
Yep.
I think that some of the things you did touch upon are great for anyone. My favorite one is tape yourself getting the fake interview.
Yeah.
That's an amazing one. And especially for so many people who have never really done an in-person interview, or if they're interviewing for a job remotely, that is a camp. No better way to see how they look. Anytime I do I've been a guest on a podcast, the night before I go through and I'm like, all right, where am I going to look best? Where's my lighting going to look? Do I need my camera sets? Do I need my lights? Oh, is it just an audio podcast? Where am I going to get the quietest room or whatever that is? Because I want to be totally prepared. But when you're going to an in-person interview, it's good to, the body language really does, in some ways, speak louder than words.
Yeah, it does. And, what most people don't realize is people are making their judgment right away. Like I said, when I'm interviewing a chef, I know within 2 minutes if they're hired. And most people know that also within 2 minutes of meeting you. They've already made their assumption if you're the right candidate for the job. And there's little subtle things that you could do to make sure. A lot of people don't apply for jobs because they think that they are not qualified. So they don't ever get the job out of fear of like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not ready, or blah, blah, blah. That'll never happen to me. It's too good to be true.
The stories they tell themselves.
Right. What people would be surprised with, because I've hired a lot of chefs and I've hired a lot of people throughout my career for high-level jobs, is sometimes no one's applying for those jobs. You're competing against someone that's also not qualified for the job. And so you don't always need to be the best person for the job. You just need to be better than the other person.
Yeah.
Just got to be better than them. And you don't know if you are or not. And I've seen a lot of people go into jobs that they're not qualified for, but no one else applied. So guess what? By default, you're the person.
At some point, you need a body.
Yep. And how many people are missing out on opportunities simply out of their fear of thinking they're not good enough? Like you said, the stories we tell ourselves.
A lot of times people would say, how did you get this? How did you get that? I would just say, I asked for it. I asked for the opportunity, or I applied.
Right.
And I go, well, what happened if you didn't get it? Well, I applied to something else. Or how did you get working like that? Well, they didn't knock on my door.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great thing to just
fear of rejection, right? Getting over that, inoculating yourself little by little with getting over your fears is like superpower. So I do this weekly Q&A on my Chef's PSA Instagram account, where I call it my Cigar Sunday Q&A. I get a lot of very similar questions, but one of the questions I get a lot is, how do I get motivated to do this thing? And
what's this thing?
Whatever it could be. Like, how do I motivate my staff to do this? Or how do I motivate myself? Like, people will say, my job sucks. I'm not getting paid enough. I get passed up for promotion. I don't like anyone there. And they list all these things. How do I find the motivation to leave? I'm like, dude, your fucking motivation's right there. You don't lack motivation. What do you want?
Lack execution.
You lack action. You lack the ability to act upon all this motivation that's right there in front of you. Like, how much worse do you want it to get before you get motivated?
Yeah.
You don't lack motivation. You just lack the ability to act on the situation.
Yeah.
I
know hairdressers like that. They hate where they're at. They don't like where they're in their career. And the only reason they end up not being there is because maybe the salon closed.
Right.
And then they're forced to it. I have a paradigm mind shift of which I'm working on it for some other things, but it's like, if you did not have the thing that generates the most security in your life, would you behave differently?
Say that one more time.
If you did not have what generates the most financial security in your life, would you behave differently with the endeavors you want to pursue? I think the answer would be yes.
Probably both ways too. If you had more money and if you had less money, you might be more ambitious and you might hustle a little harder if you need the money, and you might hustle a little less hard if you didn't. So this is kind of like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah. So most people are stuck at level 3, which is the safety and the financial security. Mm-hmm. And they don't get to levels 3 and 4, which is like purpose and self-actualization. Because once you're in that financial security, it's like, yeah, I might not fit in. I might not be able to self-actualize, but I really am not being chased by tigers and I can eat food. Life isn't bad enough and I don't want the next level enough. It's interesting when you get to the next level, it's like, no, but I want to have a purpose. I want to be fulfilled and I want to feel like I'm contributing to society. Not everyone has that because it's easy. It's very easy to get comfortable in just good enough or just not bad enough. It's like this 80-degree weather of life. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's almost like the weather's perfect. I have enough money. I fit in. Life isn't great, but it's not actually terrible. And sometimes going one way or the other, if you go to level 4, you get motivated to go to level 5, and you go to level 2, you also get motivated to go up.
Yeah. I'm starting to think like, what if I didn't have security that I currently have in place? Would I behave differently on these other endeavors that I am pursuing simultaneously? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the answer is yes.
Absolutely.
The question is, how do I now find the time to pursue it with the intensity that it deserves? Hopefully I didn't bore you too much with our conversation.
No, this was great. This was great, man. I enjoy good conversation. So as I like to say, intellectual sparring partners, it's good to
sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you feel?
I mean, I think this is the look, right?
Yeah.
I think it looks good.
Yeah,
I think it looks good.
Top is good. Like I actually, so funny enough, random note, anytime you see photos of stuff, and people like the hair, here's a random thing.
Yeah.
I found in most photos, the height of the height of the forehead is almost equal to the height of the hair. When you see the short sides beards and you have that, the forehead and the height of the hair are almost neck and neck.
Whoa.
It's a weird proportion. I don't know why that's that way.
Golden ratio of hair.
There must be some sort of golden ratio where there's like a forehead and a height because of the jaw. I don't know, but it always seems to be something at least equal to that. Because every time somebody was saying, Clive would come in, my hair feels too big. Mm-hmm. And then they would bring in a photo and be like, David, back up. Yeah. It was like this big quick fry, like something a little bit taller than yours. Yeah. But then I would measure out his forehead and then the top of his head, it was almost equal. And I started noticing this pattern. Mm-hmm. And then I started asking other hairdressers, do you notice the same pattern? And they go, yeah. I'm like, dude, why? We're like, we don't know. We haven't figured out why it worked.
And I'm sure you're going to throw in something like with the jaw and the beard. And there's probably,
there's probably a lot more going on, but I can't explain it very well. I'm able to observe it, acknowledge it, and then to implement it.
Yeah.
Versus like, if I were to take your head like this.
Looks terrible.
That's what I'm saying. Sometimes the hair is fun.
Yeah. No, thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm just a little hairspray so that it stays up because it's kind of windy right now.
Well, smoke that cigar. Let me know what you think.
I will.
And like I said, drink your favorite drink. Listen to some good music.
Yeah, which you were a hip hop fan.
Huge hip hop fan.
Yeah. Is that when you were chefing? Would you blast music?
Absolutely not. No music in the kitchen.
No music in the kitchen.
No. I've had to break up fights before, and yeah, people get passionate about what they're listening to, and honestly, it's distracting. And I came up in the kitchens where we were not allowed to really play music or make a lot of noise. Oh. So a quiet kitchen was the focus kitchen, and it just stuck, right? So do I agree with it? Well, clearly I do, because that's what I act upon. I also realize I act upon it because that's the way I was brought up.
When you cook at home,
music.
You listen to music.
Music, yeah. Would I professionally? No. Personally, yes.
When you're personally cooking, is it the same music like hip hop that you like, or is it a different style of music that kind of puts your mindset?
It might be both.
At ease?
It might be both. So if I'm like really throwing down like dinner with guests and I'm cooking Italian food, I might be listening to some Sinatra or something. If I'm making Mexican food, it might be some Mexican music. But if it's just the 99% of the time cooking, it's going to be the Wu-Tang Clan or Nas or
Wu-Tang Clan.
Nothing to fuck with. Yeah, it's going to be something fun like that.
Yeah, my favorite music is heavy metal. So, trying to cook to Rain and Blood or Cell of Heaven or Pantera's Cowboys from Hell. Pantera is a little more groovy.
Yeah.
You can kind of like cook to that one.
Yeah.
But certain metal and cooking for me is not really, I don't ever get to exist in a creative space while listening to metal. It's always usually something very like, it's always like jazz or Sinatra. I haven't gotten to hip hop or rap. When
you like classical piano or anything like that?
Well, I grew up playing piano.
So there's this pianist. Her name is Lola Astanova. She's great. Been listening to her a lot. She's just like that. When I'm working in silence, I normally will have like classical or something like that in the background. And this has been, I've been hooked on this piano for a while.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Music is like another one of those arts that I think is just it's a magic ingredient for a lot of things.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's the soundtrack to your life, right?
Well, there's sounds and smells that create memories.
Yeah, those anchors, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if we're listening to good music and we're eating food that smells good when we're cooking it, those are the memories that bring us back to usually our childhood.
Yep. Every significant milestone in your life, you can usually attach to a food memory or a music memory, right?
Yeah. For me, it's both.
Yep.
What's a food from your childhood? I'm like, it's chicken fried steak and gravy. All this new stuff that I love, like when I go to Commodore or something like that, that is all new stuff.
New experiences.
New experiences, right. And I'm craving new ones. But if I'm feeling a shit day, like I really just want like ham hocks and navy beans in a soup or something.
I had heard somewhere that with regards to music, that most people won't listen to new after like the age of 24. Like whatever you were listening from the ages of like 18 to 24 or like 16 to 24, you're going to listen to that for the rest of your life, most likely.
I am still listening to that music.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely expanding. New things are exciting. They are unfamiliar. And if I didn't like new things, then I wouldn't be excited for tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. I'm going to smoke that cigar at some point. I'll make sure to notify you when that occurs.
Yes.
And feel free to come on anytime because I would love to dig in more to leadership stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
We scratched the surface of who you are.
I love the sparring.
What I know about you that they don't know is that you are an onion and that we peeled back the outer shell, 15 more layers of you. We didn't get into you doing MMA fighting. We didn't get into you into a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm excited. Come back on. We'll figure it out. I'm going to hear about how your the rebranding of stuff is going.
Yeah, thank you. Now I need someone to address me. We were talking about the white T-shirt and the black T-shirt at the beginning.
Yeah,
so I'll have a white dog.
Yeah,
and so I always wear a black T-shirt. But the problem is I end up getting white hairs all over me.
I have black dogs.
So I'm like, I think I got to switch up the brand, get rid of the black T-shirt, and start moving to the white shirt. So
I told you why I wear a white shirt. It's because look in the camera. You can always see the person behind it. If I wear a black shirt and you have dark hair, your hair goes away. If you're blonde and a white shirt, I can still see your hair. I'm literally trying to be a back.
You're the green screen.
Focus be solely on who's in my chair.
That's awesome.
So there was a conscious choice, and my favorite thing to do in the world is wear blue jeans and a white T-shirt.
Yeah, I might be switching to the white T-shirt too. So
make sure your dog's in your room.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, man. Thanks, Andre.
You're welcome.
Later.
That was awesome.